All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Crushing Land. Happy to be here with you guys today. I apologize that we are a few minutes late. I had a little technical error and it wasn't streaming right, and so had to fix that. But we are here with you guys now, and so we're happy to join you. And I got Roman Northcut with me today, and I'll give a little background on this episode before we get too far with this thing. Some of you have heard from Roman, some of you have not. In the past, you might be familiar with his name, maybe not, doesn't matter. But this was a little bit different than other ones. So Roman, like us, is a land investor. So it's not like somebody that's an added service. It's somebody that's doing things like us. Roman also is a land investor that came along in 2016, I believe. So he's only been doing this for about 6 years. Did have a different business background. Roman was actually also my very first land investing student. I actually wasn't even looking at teaching land investing. I was doing it myself, and he approached me and asked me about teaching him because he wanted to get into it. Had zero real estate background, but had a business background and needed help with that part, and has really blown it up. And now we're going to talk a little bit about how he's done that over the last 6 years, really scaling this business up, growing it, having a team, as it said there, 7-figure a year business running in this, starting from scratch just 6 years ago. Because there's so many people that started in this business and have been around for a decade. And it's hilarious. I see like their posts and they're still asking the same questions 10 years later that they asked 10 years ago, about like, how do I get a list and and it's like, okay, you're not really taking this seriously if that's the case. And so here's an example of somebody that took it seriously and somebody that's just run with it and all that. So Roman, thank you for joining us. Roman, not only an investor, first student, friend of mine as well, joining us from Florida, down in his new home in Orlando. And so thanks for joining us. And before we start, I guess, asking any questions or anything, if you have anything you want to say or just a little background or anything like that, feel free to jump in and go ahead with that.
Yeah, well, first, thanks, Jonathan, for having me on board and that nice welcome there. And yeah, it's awesome to reconnect with you. Obviously we stay in contact and have continued to stay in contact over the last 6 years, but it's really cool to still be able to have a friendship with you and come on board your show. Definitely come a long way from when you started helping me, but I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit more. So, I'll let you run the show, man. Great to see you. Great to be here.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for joining us. I'm listening to you. I'm just opening this up just to make sure that that I don't miss any comments or anything like that with this. Sorry, just want to make sure I don't miss any comments or anything here. So hold on, I'm getting a little feedback. Anyway, okay. So, I guess first off, you were successful in business. Let's face it, right? You had a successful business before. You don't have to go into all those details, but let's just talk about that for a minute. What I guess made you want to go from a successful business to being like, let's sell this and get into something else and ultimately land on real estate investing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm 45. I haven't had a job since college. So I just had started and ran different businesses. I always hailed myself as an opportunist. So I would see an opportunity to make money in a particular market. Sometimes it was jewelry, due to a couple of different jewelry companies. I had a mechanic shop. It's a partner in an interior design firm, and I think a couple others. But I didn't vet the opportunity for passion for myself. I was just excited to make money on my own, excited to kind of be that entrepreneurial spirit. But I kind of ran dry, or we hit roadblocks on those other businesses. And then they would stop me at some level. They were successful at some level, but I wouldn't grow past a certain point. And, it just I would be burnt out on them. And I finally came to a decision one day. I promised myself, that's it. I'm not going to do anything for money. I'm not going to make $1. I'm not going to drive an Uber car. I'm going to basically sell the half of the company that I was a partner in at that time. And I had already sold my other ones at that time, and just made a promise to myself that I would go broke before doing something that I loved. And I quit everything and started researching a couple different avenues on what do I want to do? What do I think I would have passion in? And just came across, looked at different ideas within real estate and without. And when I really kind of dove into this land thing, it looked like a lot of fun, and it really played on my skills that I had built in those other businesses. Although it wasn't real estate, just the way it's structured, the way land deals are done, seemed to be a good match. And then I met you, and you helped me get started and grow in the first year here.
Yeah, I mean, sure, business is business, right? I mean, if you can, either the tools and the skill set and whatever you want to call it, the people that are successful in business are successful for a reason. It's not from being lazy. It's not from thinking. I've talked about that all the time. You know, people talk about get rich quick, and you never had that mentality. It wasn't like, I mean, you had goals, but you were never like, I'm gonna touch my finger to something and download a list and click my mouse 6 times and I'm going to be a millionaire tomorrow. I mean, you never ever said those words. So it was like never even that idea. So you had the right business mentality. And for those it was kind of interesting. We talked about our history a little bit. So I actually met Roman at a different event. I just happened to be there. Somebody was speaking and they actually mentioned that I was a successful, land investor and had done a bunch of deals. And I just kind of sitting there, like not thinking anything of it. And for those of you who are wondering, I mean, Roman literally came up to me after and grilled me. I mean, grilled me, and probably longer than the person spoke. I mean, I think we were shutting off the lights on us there. It was and he was and I thought it was interesting. But one of the things that really came out of that you said was you told me I was shocked I had basically had an answer for everything. That's what you told me afterwards. You're it blew you away that and I was wow, I can teach this. But then I was shocked, you were sitting there saying asking all these questions because I had never seen that before. And then you asked me for my phone number or email. I don't even remember what it was now. Asked me for some contact point. And I was I'll never hear from this guy again. I answered. And literally within a week, you were can you teach me how to do this business? And it was exactly. can we work together? And it was oh, okay, let's do this. And
I literally beelined over to you.
I remember. And the group got it was funny because you were the first person there. And then the group did this. Other people decided to take advantage of that. And then everybody else was yeah, we're not hanging around this long. And then it went back to it went from me and you to up to maybe 8 people or something. And then went back to the 2 of us by the end. Well, my wife was there too. I don't even know. She hung around and talked the whole time. She might have been I'm sitting back down. I'm done with you guys. It was but yeah, I mean, so just, I mean, a little bit, I definitely saw, and that's one of the things that's kind of key to all of this. We're not going over the history, but your tenacity and just being very business minded has, was very evident at that day.
Well, I mean, skeptical was part of it, maybe a healthy skepticism because, I mean, somebody talks about, there's something coming from, a teacher of something. Anybody can say they're a teacher of something, but, is there really weight there? And when it was announced that you were there and that you had a business that did this over, I think you were in business for 5 years at that time, or 3 years or 5 years.
2016, yeah, we were 5 or 6 years at that point in land. I mean, we've been in real estate for years, but yeah.
And so I wanted to find out if it was true. Did you really, was this viable? Because I was a little skeptical about it. And that's how I grilled you. Are you really doing this? Have you been doing this full time? Are you making good money? Do you enjoy it? Things like that. And yeah, you had all good answers, and that was it.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember that night very well, and sitting there, and even after, like, going back, I was talking to my wife afterwards, and she was like, so many questions, and like, these people are never going to do anything, which was probably true from like that other group of 10 people, whatever it was, that like expanded and then contracted back. I mean, that is the way a lot of people are, right? They just don't put forth the effort, but you certainly did. One thing I want to add here, everybody, as you're listening to this is live question and answer. So if you have questions that you're hearing as we're going along here, since he is in our business, feel free to post them. I'm monitoring the comments. All I see right now is the word test. Somebody tested it to make sure they could hear well. But feel free to comment. You don't have to do it right now, but as you're listening to this, feel free to, if you have comments, questions, anything like that, we'll be happy to answer them. So, why don't you just give us the quick rundown then? I mean, the last 6 years. I mean, 2016, that was, right? So, and I actually think it's probably more like 5 years. If I remember, I don't remember correctly. It's possible I'm dead wrong, but I thought it was towards the end of 2016, but it may have been early. I don't remember. But if it was early, then okay, 6 years, it's fine. So why don't you just give us the rundown the last 5 or 6 years?
I believe it was March in 2016. So
it's been about basically exactly 6 years then.
I think it was around March. And, it does take a little bit of time it took a little bit of time for me to learn everything, because I studied heavily, because I wanted to get it right or to be successful at this. So I took probably a month, and I don't recommend that everybody do this, because there's definitely a good advice in take a bite and act on it, take a bite and act on it. But I didn't do it that way. I wanted to know it from start to finish, and I learned, and I took notes first, but that wasn't too long. That was only that was during the time that we were talking about working together before we actually did it. And then once I felt like I had absorbed the knowledge enough and to get started is when we got started. And just one step in front of the other. I mean, really, the first year, it's not like, I did, from what I've been told, more deals my first year than most, but, it still had to be that first deal. And I actually remember calling you probably about 3 times a day before I got that first contract in the mail. Like, are you sure? I'm really nervous. Are you sure? And you're like, just wait, calm down, just wait. And then the next day, I still don't have anything. In the mail. And eventually, though, it came. I was like, "Oh my gosh, wow, I got one!" And then for the first year was, you got to work. I mean, you don't have to. I guess it depends on what level people want to grow. I had in my mind the level that I wanted to grow, which was kind of not a casual thing. I wanted a certain level of business, so I knew I was going to have to put in the time up front, which I did. But yeah, just one step in front of the other for that first year, for sure.
And that's definitely a key, what you just said, because I think we talk about that. I mean, is your goal to do a handful of deals and you're X age and you just want to make some supplementary income, or do you want to run a business? And there's nothing wrong with either. Everybody's different. If I was 70 years old, I probably don't want to start a business. It's like, I'm happy with $50,000 a year supplementary income from whatever I have, right? I'm going to be at 40. It's a little different story. So I think, that what you just said is exactly true. I mean, at that point you were late 30s, right? As you're starting, and it's like, you got your whole life in front of you, business life in front of you still. It's like, I don't want to do this little deal by deal thing. I want to have a business because I want to be clearing up stuff as time goes along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw the potential pretty early on. Although don't get me wrong, I had fears. There were days I had to talk myself into getting out of bed, and because I was pretty.
I remember
scared.
The fears that we discussed. Never mind the ones you had yourself. So yeah,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Some of the scariest moments in my life were actually when I sold a business. Even though maybe I've got money in the bank, but when I all of a sudden didn't have an idea what I was going to do next, that was very, very scary. And then before it makes money, a lot of fears I had to overcome, and this one for sure. But but just, fighting through it. But I saw the potential, or at least, it made sense to me. It saw the potential. I was able to see that it would work. And it was just like, but can I get the deals? And that was really the question. And if I could get the deals, and then at first, I guess, maybe can I resell it? Like, is that kind of really have a profit margin there? But I mean, but I saw the potential, and within that kept me going forward, even getting through the fears, getting through the tough times. Because it does, from the moment of beginning to actually first contract in hand, that's not an overnight thing, because there are a number of steps that need to happen. People need to agree on the contract. It needs to be set in. It needs to be closed on. So it's a bit of time. But the thing to do, if anybody is in that stage, is actually don't sit on your laurels during that time, because when the contract comes in, if you haven't been continuing to work during those few months, and they're not too many months, maybe 2 or 3 months, then you may get a contract in, but but everything is stopped because you haven't continued
nothing behind it.
Forward. You have nothing behind it. Your pipeline's empty.
We talk about that up and down. It's literally like consistency. I mean, you were the first person I probably told that to, and I've told it since then to, tons of people. It's like, if there's anything that's important about this business more than anything else, it's being consistent, because then when the pipeline comes, or I use the funnel illustration, you keep pouring in the top, you'll always have stuff coming out the bottom. And that was a great thing you did, because we talked about that, but you were questioning. I remember that you were questioning, is this going to happen? And but you never stopped when you were questioning. You never were like, let's make sure before. You were like, okay, he's telling me this. We've worked together. I'm going to trust the process. And then all of a sudden you had like a contract. And then like a few days later, you had another one. And all of a sudden you've got 10 of them sitting in front of you in a relatively short amount of time that you were then working with.
Once the first one came in, then they just kind of fell in like back to back to back. It just takes time for that first one, as long as people are continuing to work during that time period. What I did, and what I might recommend, or what I think is good, is to consider, okay, well, how much does it cost to drop letters in the mail? How much is it going to cost me to do whatever I need to do? And then just dedicate a chunk of money to it. And whatever that number is, make sure it's enough to cover a period of time to get started at whatever pace that person wants to do, but then see it through and be willing to, because sometimes the scary thing is spending the money up front, right? And but just, it's like, if you go to Vegas, most people go to Vegas and they have an idea on how much money they're going to take to Vegas, and they're like, well, win or lose, this is what I'm taking. I'm taking $2,000. I'm taking $500. I'm taking $10,000. Whatever that might be, that you're willing to lose. Take that money in and use it all, and give it a full shot, just like you would go if you went to Vegas.
And I think that's actually something that it's great you say that, because that's one of the things where I feel that in some of the training that we've done with other people since, is we've really implemented that in. Some people will tell us like, just do it and like join up and we'll teach you and you're good. And then they have like nothing left, and that stops them from, and one of the things, like, if you call us and have like a consultation with us, we're very firm. Like, you need some money to market. You don't need money to buy properties. We talked about that. There's plenty of ways around that, right? But you do, the marketing budget is you need it 100%. There's no way around that. It's like, and you need to, one of the things we talked about, which I teach all the time, is, and I know you've done it, so it's proven true in your case, is that needs to go up as you want to. I mean, unless you want to stay at, there's nothing, it doesn't have to go up. You said, if you want to stay at a certain level, then fine. But if you want to grow a business, your marketing budget on March of 2016 can't be the same as May of 2022, right? It's like you brought that up because of growing your business and turning things over. So that's a huge, I love that you're saying this stuff. I mean, guys, Roman and I did not talk. It just shows that what we've taught, I've never changed that, because this is what works. And you came from other businesses, it works. I mean, this is business. This is just common sense stuff that, fits in. But, I think it was Ben Franklin, right? Common sense isn't so common. It's amazing how many people like try to like do this, and it just doesn't work.
I think a lot of people, when trying something new, and they forget, like when we were kids and or babies and we didn't know how to walk, like we fell so many times. But now, when we're adults, for some reason when we look in our memory bank, it seems like we just learned everything super fast and was successful at whatever we were successful at, like instantly. But that's just not the case. And it wasn't the case for me either. I'm sure it wasn't the case for you, and so it's just it's not going to happen in a week with like you might get a deal out of the first mailing. That's possible, and depending upon how many letters you mail in your first mailing, likely. But, it's just being coachable, having an idea how much time, effort, and money you're willing to invest, because it is an investment, and following through with the instruction and your promise to yourself.
And a part of it, I mean, you talk about investment, and it's funny because I say this all the time, and it's easy for me to say this. I didn't go to college. I never saw the need. I was like an entrepreneur mindset. Like I had little businesses when I was in middle school. It's like I was like bringing stuff to school and selling like sports cards and like collectible, I mean, nothing much, but it's hilarious how you look back at it. You're like, oh man, I was making like $10 a day, which doesn't sound like much, but when it was in the 90s and you're a 10-year-old or 12-year-old or whatever, that's pretty good money, right? It's like, but it's like, I always had that mindset, but I tell people all the time, like people are just, we're so trained to go a certain way that anything that's against that, even though it's the exact same thing, people will drop $100,000 a year to go get some degree that they're never going to use again. And it's just normal. And you don't even question, you don't think about it. But then when it's like, this is going to be my business, like you said, let's invest in ourselves. Let's put some money in it. People like run the other, oh, no, that's crazy. It's like, it's so weird. Like, the way we're conditioned, society has us, I call it noise. That's like, literally, I'm like, you got to stop listening to the noise. And that's in a lot of stuff. Like there's so much noise around us that just all day long. And we just build everything around that. So, that's your start. So we don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that because that wasn't why we honestly brought you here. It's where you can go. Cause I think, a lot of people, some people just don't ever get out the door, but the ones that do, it's like they get out the gate and they get off to that running start and they hit the, 100-meter mark in the 5K race. And then all of a sudden they're like crawling, right? It's like, cause they just some get disillusioned, whatever. So, you have continued to grow and you've put in different pieces to help you do that. You've got a land business. You've got people working for you. That didn't happen overnight, obviously. So what enabled you or helped you to because honestly, just being straightforward here, I mean, I kind of gave you some ideas and some thoughts and different, but this was kind of at this point, I'm almost not out of the picture, but we still talked, but this was you at this point. You had a business running where you were involved and had a couple people involved, but you kind of just took it at that point because now you knew what you were doing. And so what enables you to do that, and get where you are now? And we can talk a little bit about where you are now too after.
Yeah, great. So the scaling portion. So like you mentioned, it wasn't my first business. So I had made some mistakes in growing businesses in the past. One of them was attempting to grow them too fast, where expenses would pile up and I would add people. And, my idea of having a big business meant a bunch of people, not a big bank account or resources anyway for the company to operate. So this time around, and from the beginning, since I had the passion, I always saw the longevity of it. I'm like, okay, this is something I'm going to want to do for a very long time, possibly till the rest of my life. So I always had that longevity in mind. So I ensured that I wanted to grow always on a solid foundation. So whatever level I'm at, I did it enough to feel like I stood on solid ground. So that first year, I was only me. Actually, I only did it myself. I think I did end up getting a freelancer just to help with a little bit of the putting up ads a little bit towards the end of that first year, but I'd rinsed and repeated the basics. reminds me of basketball coaches. They're always like preaching the fundamentals. So I just did the fundamentals. I mean, I did every piece of it in the beginning just so I knew
I'm
it.
just stop you 1 second, just interrupt here, just because I just want to clarify something. Because I remember this. When you say you did everything, you mean the key points. Because I remember you did outsource letters and stuff like that pretty early on. You were doing that, but it took you a year. I thought didn't you have somebody doing some like retired person or something? I forgot what it was now. It's been too long, but somebody was.
Maybe less than a year. I did have someone come over and put the letters in the envelopes.
Yeah, that's I kind of regular.
But you don't have.
And my reason for bringing this up was one of the things that I talk about all the time is there's certain aspects that are easy to outsource that you need to look at first, which you did. It may have been 6 months in or something. I don't know when you did that, honestly. I just remember the conversation, so I know you did it. But the stuff we're talking about or getting to is some of the stuff. You said you did everything yourself, which is fine. But this other stuff that we're going to get to here, this is the stuff that some people never get to. You were like, you outsourced the typical mundane stuff, letters and things like that. But then you kept going beyond that. And I just wanted to clarify that really quick, because so many people they do that. They're like, oh, I've got a mail house. Oh, I've got a call center. Oh, I've got this. Oh, I've got this. But then when it comes to marketing and listing and advertising and acquisition, all these other aspects, it never goes any step further than that. It's like, it's always with them.
Well, there's a million ways to do things, right? But the way that I did it, I actually intentionally grew slowly. And now maybe it doesn't seem slow compared to, I guess they say the slow something wins the race or whatever. But I just grew incrementally over time. So could I have laid it all out and said, okay, I need this person and that person and acquisitions and sales, and let me just build the whole team and try not to do any work up front? I didn't want to do that. So I incrementally grew. So yes, at first, the first thing I outsourced was putting paper in envelopes, and someone would come over and stuff the envelopes once a week. That did free up a few hours of my week. And then as that happened, maybe a few weeks or a month or two later, I found a freelancer to take over a piece of the online marketing where they would create the listings and put them up online. And then I did that. And I also wanted to make sure financially we were stable. So I didn't want to promise, since it was still an untested business for me, I always wanted to be in the black all the time, except for that initial phase, which obviously it takes a little bit of time to get money back. But other than that, I wanted to always be in the black. So that's why I made sure that it worked at every stage. And I didn't invest extra money in, which I could have done much faster. Honestly, I really could have. But a few months after having that person, I did end up hiring a part-time admin assistant to help me with deeds and documents and things like that, who is still with me today and is one of my top managers. So it really worked out. But
I personally 100% agree with you. I don't, it just goes back to business in general. Somebody starts a business, it's like proven that most businesses are a few years in the red, a few years. And you're saying like you never really want to be in the red other than that, really. And so the fact that you can even have a profitable business is substantial. And the other thing that I think is huge in this is, I tell people this all the time, is you really should understand the inner workings of your business A to Z, because if you need to change something, if you need to change somebody, if there's anything that, even if you grow to that point, like where you have different people and they're handling stuff, if that that person can walk outside tomorrow and get hit by a bus, right? In reality, you hope that doesn't happen, but it can happen. And so you can't be at that point now where you brought somebody on and they figured it all out. And now you're like, whoa, what's going on? What's you need to, at that point you'd be able to bring somebody else. And obviously those are grave circumstances. We hope that never happens to anybody, but it's it's life. Life's fragile. You just never know. Where any of this stuff is.
Absolutely. When my team trains somebody else, let's say, a manager, we're bringing on somebody else, I always have that. And if it's, say it's a skill, maybe they are not super experienced with, I ask them to do it themselves a few times, because you can't train somebody on something to do it the way you want it done unless you know how to do it. And so just going back to your point, is learning the business inside and out. It's very difficult to scale if you're hiring people to do something you don't know how to do. So,
Yeah.
but if you know how to do it well, I mean, I used to even time myself stuffing letters, like true story.
I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
Myself, so that when I would have somebody come in and, I'm really trying to run a very lean business, I would train them exactly how I folded and stuffed it in and ask them to do it the same way, because it saved time and I was able to save money. Now, nowadays it doesn't matter, but in the beginning, when I was really wanting to test this model, that's what it came down to.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. We talked about that. And that's one of those things where you don't care. Some people do. I don't. You don't care if somebody gets better than you, but you still have to have a working, if you're hiring somebody to fold letters and envelopes and stuff, and you're paying them for your timing and they all of a sudden double that. And so they're making the same amount of money in half who cares? They're getting the job done at the level that you've set. I don't care if they get better than me. Right. But It's still having that standard and knowing what it's at and all of that, which is, it's such a huge thing. So, 2016, no land experience, real estate experience, no real estate experience, learning, we're talking, you're by yourself, mailing a letter for the first time. You haven't done a single deal. Fast forward now, here we are. It's 2022. What's the rough overview of what's your role in your business now? What do you have? What general business setup, I guess, because we're talking about scaling, team building. So what do things look like for your land business relative? You said not that quickly, but in reality, 6 years to go from nothing to a 7-figure business. That's pretty good. I think anybody here is going to say like, man, I wish I could do that. And you can do that. You're proof that you can do that. So where are things between then and now?
So I'm still very, very, very lean minded. So we have a very small team. There are basically right now 6 core people, including myself, that are doing it. But we're able to do the volume.
But by core, you don't mean like a mailing house. You don't mean the title company. So you mean people that are dedicated for a certain role, right?
And I change that to 7 full-time employees.
For you only though, not attorneys, things like that. You're talking not our support staff, that because we rely on people like that every deal. You're talking about people that are just in your land business.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're able to do a pretty high number of deals. And I've talked with other individuals that we actually looked to hire somebody who was working for a competitor. And during the interview process, he asked how many deals we were doing a year. And I told him, and it turned out they were doing maybe like 20% more. And at that time, we only had 4 people. And I asked them how many people that they had, and they had 17 people to do the same number of deals we were doing with 4. So the key, then the 2 things that I think your next question is how. So number 1 is having rock stars on the team. It's a huge difference between someone who is not a performer, a mediocre performer, or a rock star. That's number 1. And number 2 is systems. So during that growth process, we spent a lot of our time, dedicated time every week, to growing and improving, streamlining our systems. And because of that, it doesn't take us long. We don't touch deals for a lot. They don't take a lot of work within our system handles it. So we can do more with fewer people. And what that benefits, it benefits the whole team, because It's not like some of the weeks we do work hard, but it's not like we're crazy overworked. We're not all working 50, 60 hours a week at all. And, everybody is also incentivized based on, our production. So I have a smaller team that produces higher level, but they also get treated better as well, financially, benefits, all the extras. So, it's
one hand washes the other, right?
Yeah, it's an improving cycle, that we all share in the benefit. So systems and people is basically the magic sauce, in my opinion.
One thing on this that I'm going to ask you, because I know you don't agree with this statement, but you've heard it because I know, and we've talked about it because other people have said this. They say, don't train these people to do these things because they'll just rip you off and go do it themselves, right? If I'm training somebody how to acquire land and handle all my acquisitions, or I'm handling people, I mean, I guess we didn't really talk about that, but you basically have a person that does handle your acquisitions. You have somebody that handles your dispositions, so the sales. So if you're training somebody to handle these aspects, all they got to do is learn the other side, and they're your competitor now. That's what people say. So they're like, don't be teaching people to do this. And I know you don't agree with that statement because we've talked about it. I don't agree with that statement because if I did, I wouldn't be teaching people how to invest in land and creating competition for me and for you. And right? I wouldn't. So what do you say to people that say that?
A couple of things. I mean, is it possible? Yes. But here's the thing. As we talked about, Jonathan, most people don't ever do anything with this. It's a very small percentage of people who show interest in land that actually do anything. And it's not, I mean, it's doable, but it takes a good amount of work in the beginning. And so, but my goal at some point in time, this shifted. It wasn't this way in the very beginning, but after we had really gotten some resources and money in the bank and we were really flowing, I shifted my mindset about the team, and I decided I only wanted rock stars on the team, and I wanted to pay them well. And so I wanted them to be rewarded. I want them to want to stay on the team because they see the vision for themselves. They're rewarded now very well. They have opportunity to make really, really, really good money, and they see that that's possible. I'm providing them an avenue for it. I'm assisting them in getting to that, as well as covering. They get a there's strong financial benefit just right out of the gate, as well as benefits or setting up 401ks. I mean, so my goal is to attract and retain these kind of people in a way that they are enthused about staying and growing because it's advantageous for them. It's not trickery, it's advantageous. Like, why would someone stop a great flow of income, a job that they love every day, that they're excited about, making good money, can make even more in the future? Why would anyone stop that to go to scratch and start from nothing on a questionable basis? I mean, it doesn't even make sense. I wouldn't even want to do that because I just make it easy. I build a system so that they can basically be their own entrepreneurs, own their own portion of the company, control how much they get paid, how much they want to produce. So they actually get to run their own business within my company and be rewarded based on their production. So they kind of already are their own boss in a lot of ways. Yeah. And without the risk. It's
interesting because I actually read a book on that. Well, not a book on this. I'm just on business in general. I highly recommend the book. It's Ready, Fire, Aim. But one of the things the guy talks about, which I think speaks to this, and I tell people all the time, there's a difference between the business owner entrepreneur and the person that's willing to run the business. Every major company out there has CEOs, high six-figure earners, seven-figure earners as CEOs, right? And those people have no desire to go create a competitive company. They're making good money and they can run that business day in and day out.
Yeah.
But that's where they're going to stay, and they're more than content to do that. He actually uses the term intrapreneurs, like they're inside the business running the whole thing, but no desire to go outside of it and be a business owner and start from scratch and all the things that you mentioned.
And
so for those of us,
why would they? To be honest with you, if so, I didn't have someone offer a structure like they have or like we have here that I could just step into and run it as my own without having to put in my own resources and be like kind of risk. I may not even do it myself. I mean, I'd be just being completely honest, because I can get
It's hard. I
paid.
mean,
I've got
it's
a
the other
buffer.
side. You never know, right? On the side of the fence, it's like you just who knows. It's like you just don't know. You don't know because it's like you're not there. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think that's a huge thing though for everybody listening to this that is of the entrepreneur. Building the business mindset is as you're bringing these people on, they don't want to be your competitors because they don't have that desire. They don't have that dream to create that thing from scratch and do all that. They just want to have a good job. They're really good inside of it. They're what you call them, all stars or superstars or whatever. They're at those levels with those things, but that's where they want to be. I mean,
I want to caveat that though, because the rock stars, they have the dream. It may not be the dream to necessarily do it all themselves, but that's not the dream. That's not even my dream. Oh, I want to one day do it all myself. That's not the dream. They want to travel. They want to have freedom. They want to have financial abundance. They want to have time to spend with their friends and family. They want to have security. So we provide all of that here. We provide the security because they have a nice, good, solid base that's very, very competitive on the market. They have a potential to earn insane money. They have control over that. We actually just implemented unlimited vacation plan. So they can travel and do whatever they want, whenever they want, basically, as long as their job is taken care of. And so, all the things that I want, we now as a company provide that opportunity for everybody involved. And
I guess
so
it's
uh-huh.
I guess a way of saying it is they want to be
dream.
under the umbrella instead of creating the umbrella. You created it. You're the one that did this and this, and they want to be under it, even though they're getting that awesome. And so that goes back to that term, which I don't even know if it's a real term, that entrepreneur versus intrapreneur thing that he created was basically like you said, they have the same dream, they have the same goals. They're making better money than a lot of entrepreneurs are, right? That are starting there, because the ones that turn their businesses into multi-million and billion-dollar companies, that's one thing, but there's plenty of them that are not doing that. And so these people are making better money, but it's that their way of doing it is more inside of the structure instead of like creating that structure.
It's like a safety net, and also, or like oh my gosh, like McDonald's, a bunch of different stores. You could just buy the one with a franchise. It's like franchising, like the system's already there for them to use. It doesn't have to be created from scratch. Just step in, learn the process, and then you get to control your income, your time, your enjoyment. All of that is laid out within the structure. And that's what the rock stars want. That's really what they want, because the rock stars they're already go-getters. They're already motivated, and that can be in any role. And it's, who wouldn't want that? In fact, like I said, I wasn't in a position where I had an opportunity like that. Why wouldn't I? Right? Especially, when you give them time freedom, that's the kicker, now I have to say most of the team hasn't used a lot of the unlimited vacation, but it's there for them. And if they take days off, I don't question. And I really want them to make a ton of money.
Yeah. As long as they're doing their job, you don't care what they do, right? It's like, take all as much time as you want, as long as you're getting the stuff that you're supposed to. And obviously, I think that's hilarious when people are like, I want to keep them here because if they make this much, like, well, you realize that every dollar they make is more money in your pocket. It's like, people are like trying to hold back people. It's like, no, go make $1 million each. I couldn't care less. It's like, because you're putting that much money in my pocket. It's like, it works both ways. So
yeah. And how much one team member makes, the rest of the team members benefit too. Like that's how we have it structured. So we all gain.
Works both ways. Right? Like they benefit. Plus, a lot of it's contagious too, right? Like if they see one like exceeding, like doing there, it's like, oh man, I can bring up my level too. That's the other thing I think in this too is it's a valid point that I've noticed through running different businesses and different people and stuff is we talk about people taking your ideas, but a lot of these people are like all-stars, top of their game, the stuff you were talking about in a certain area, maybe not the whole business as in general, right? It's like they are like just like awesome at X. It's amazing. And I've noticed this. I mean, real estate agents prove this point, but it's amazing how many people can like find a property left, but they could never sell it, or vice versa. It's like they can sell a property, no problem. And they can, what's that ketchup popsicle to a guy in white gloves, that the expression, they can do that. But if they had to go and find that property they can't do that. So if people are in their roles that are appropriate to them, they stand to make more money. They get to, they're basically setting them up for success, right? Because they're good at that, but they don't have all the tools to actually do the entire business either.
Or the interest. I mean, there's parts of the business I love doing, and there's parts that is nails on a chalkboard, like title searches and reviewing title reports. It can't get any more soul hardening for me than that particular part of it, right? So I would rather, if I were to pick a role, I would pick, acquisitions or sales or something like that, where I'm talking with people, or maybe even the systems manager, or I can work on the systems. I enjoy that too. And everybody has their particular things that they're good at, that they enjoy. And then, yes, they'll just put them in that role. And now they get to be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, as you mentioned, and they don't have to deal with all those other parts that they don't like. Our transaction coordinator and our ops manager, they do not have any interest in doing sales at all. You know what I mean? And the people in other roles, they just don't have, because it's there is a wide gambit of skills that are needed here. And, yes, it can be done by one person up to a certain point, but I mean, if you want to get past a certain level, then you have to bring on other people. And there's no way, I wouldn't say no way. The financial reward that somebody can get within my organization would be definitely not a given to do it themselves, because I make it that rewarding. I mean, that's the key of scale. Is my goal is to build this thing and share it. That's it. I don't want to make all the money. I want to share it. I want to give other people the opportunity to enjoy their life and reach their goals. And that's
part
really
of that is that you're also scaling back your time though. So in your value, you're like, I'm getting to the point where I'm not going to be spending, let them run the business. My time, your time is less involved. So I'm sharing the money, still making good money, but guess what? My interests are now in whatever you want to do, as opposed to, which is huge. I mean, again, a lot of that depends on your age, where you're at, what you want to do, everything like that. But I'm in the same boat as you. We've talked about that from the beginning. I'm one of the things that, my goal was to be retired by the time I was 40 and not have to do deals anymore. And though we've got good money in the bank and, we've got assets and we could probably play around with it to the point of not needing to do anything, I can't do that. But we kind of reevaluated like 10 years ago and we're like, or 7 years ago or 6 years ago, or whatever it was. And we were like, okay, we're in our mid 30s. Why are we going to work like dogs why not build something and take less time? And yes, we're sharing money and we're doing these things, but we're able to now have more time's more valuable to us at this point in our life. So it's like, let's go enjoy these things and let's travel and let's do this stuff. And yes, we still work and we still have a business, but other people are running things, other people are doing stuff. They get their share, we get ours, so that's huge. I mean, as you're looking at it, like anybody's looking at it.
And that's a good point. And that's one of the things that we're in it for. And when it comes to scale and bringing on those quality people, that's what they're in it for too. So I have a mindset that I can't have anything I can't give. So I'm really, I really am a proponent for them in that same way. And it didn't happen like overnight for me. I mean, this was like kind of a gradual progression over time. But I tell you, with that mindset, I love coming to work still every day, because now I'm helping them live their dreams. And they love, well, don't get me wrong, we've been really busy lately. and everybody's tired. But at the end of the day, they'll still say they love it. Yeah. And that's really fun for me. I love hearing that, this is the favorite job they've ever had, that they're still excited every day. They say they're excited for Mondays. If I have a team that's excited for Mondays, I have no worries, like at all. At all.
Yeah, we talk about that in our training. We're at the point, and you are, we're like, I don't even know what day of the week it is half the time. It's like, yeah. I have no idea. Like, this afternoon I had to go out and do something. And like, I stopped at a bar and had a beer. It was like at noon in the middle of Wednesday, it's like, cause I was just out and like do that. And it's like, I have no clue what day it is half the time. It's like doing things that other people are like, oh God, it's Monday. And then they're living for Friday, right? It's like Friday, we could care less. It's like no idea where that stuff is. And I quote him a lot and I use it a lot. And it's so applicable here. Mark Cuban with the whole half a watermelon is better than a whole grape thing. I mean, you're living that. You're like, basically like, I'm giving away half my, I don't know if it's half, but whatever it is, I'm giving away a big chunk, but I still get my half. And that's better than doing it all myself and getting a smaller piece because I had to do it all myself. I mean, that's a huge, he uses it all the time as he's investing in these companies, but part of it is as you're investing in other people, the same exact idea too.
I love that analogy. 100%. I love that. Half of a watermelon is better than the whole grape. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I'll keep that in mind.
And guys, that are listening here, I tell people all the time, I'm nothing special. Roman, yes, he had a business background and he understood different things. He didn't have anything from real estate, but he did it in 6 years. And if it takes you 10, because maybe you don't have quite the pieces, who cares, right? Or if you don't make some of the mistakes that you did, because you did make some mistakes, you hired the wrong people. You talked about the all-stars. I know in our conversations, you said one of the things you didn't do is you didn't hire those people to begin with. You hired the wrong people and you had to learn the hard way through that. So it's like, so maybe you don't make those mistakes and maybe you do it in 4 years. And who cares, right? It's like, if you get to that, it's being invested in yourself and realizing, which one of the things I really appreciated about you, you have that goal, but you never were of like that mindset. Like, okay, it's March 2016. By December, I have a team running and I'm out of this and I'm a multimillionaire in land. And you never had that. And so many people come in, I think we're just kind of geared that way because so many people talk about get rich quick and you see these different things. And it's just like, man, and you never had that. And that's, but slow and steady, like you said, wins the race. And honestly, if 6 years to having a team and having a 7-figure business and all of that is slow and steady, then sign me up all day long. Because 6 years in reality is not that long of a time period.
Sure. And it's not like I went from the 6 years of in the red to all of a sudden I'm in the black. It's been a good ride and did well along the way, but I think it comes back. You mentioned, I don't remember what you mentioned, but I'm gonna. It goes back for me to like making sure I enjoy it, because the businesses I had before, again, like I enjoyed some days, but enjoyment wasn't the top priority. You mentioned people who want to make X number of dollars by this date, I used to have those goals like that. And, I still have monetary goals, of course, but if it's just that and it's just for the money, then, might be worth reevaluating if you want to have longevity.
We tell people all the time, it's not about the money. It is, but it's not. It's about, I always tell people it's about money, but it's what the money leads you to. What can it, do you want to travel? Do you want this? Do you want a better life? For whatever it may be? Because those are all byproducts of money. But if it's all about this is the number, you're not gonna.
And sometimes we do need to just remind ourselves, like, what are we enjoying it? Or hold on, let me pause and make sure I'm enjoying and like, let me just enjoy it for a minute. Like I mentioned to you, Jonathan, I just moved about a month ago to downtown Orlando, and I'm in a high rise, right, with a beautiful view. And I've only been here a month, but every day, like I make it a point, I make it a point to walk over to the window or onto the balcony and sit there and enjoy the view for a minute, because I don't want to have this beautiful view and then it just become this mural on the wall that I forget about It's like people that live by the beach. I've lived by the beach and didn't go to the beach. If we don't specifically take time to enjoy it, remind ourselves why, and we're just in the work of it, or in the struggle, or in the striving for the goal, or attaining the money, then we forget what there is to enjoy about it. And that taking that time to enjoy, for me, creates that longevity. It keeps me from burning out. It reminds me why, because I'm doing it to enjoy my life. So why don't I just do it and enjoy my life? And that, for me, in this business, is one of the key things that differentiated it from anything else I've done before. And I will still say to this day, and I never had another business like this in my whole life, I still love it.
Yeah. And I love what I do. And I think part of it is, the nice thing is there's so many different aspects of this business that when you realize the points that you don't like, those are the ones that you're like, I need somebody else. It's like, if you love, some people love sale, they want to talk to they love the negotiation aspect. Great, they keep doing it. Outsource something else. It's like, don't try to bring somebody in. It's like, there's so many aspects that you can, handle the stuff that you like doing. It makes it, that old saying, right? If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. It's like, so pick the stuff that you love, not the stuff that you're like, oh God, I gotta go look at a title report, or I gotta go list another property and create an ad. If you hate that stuff, then don't do it. It's like, it's that simple, get other people involved. So we've been on a little bit here. We had a couple questions pop up. I'm just going to ask them quick. You don't have to go into huge details. Some of them are really easy. But I'll just ask them quick. So first, what's changed from 2016 to 2022? What, if anything, has changed is actually the way it's worded.
What hasn't changed? Hey, I think, everything has changed. My structure of business has changed. We've got different people in there, mostly different people. We've improved our systems. We do more deals, more profitable. My mindset has changed over time. But it all happened. It didn't happen. It wasn't one change from 2016 to 2020. It's just like the continual process. It's like it's the growth mindset of doing it as best as I can right now, and looking at where I want to go and what can I do a little bit better. Like Jonathan says, hey, if you don't want to do something, then pass it to someone who does want to do it. But if you're not at that point, then just muscle up for a little bit. Be flexible with yourself. There's not one right or wrong way to do it. The way to do it is to keep taking that next step.
Yeah.
And that's that's been the key to the success. And we're still growing.
We talked about before, like, grow with your business, don't grow your business. It's like, so like you said, it's been like, right. It's yeah, that's huge.
I grow myself and my business follows. That's how I look. And I mean that, like, I read, meditate,
definitely.
study,
but so many people focus on just the business growth, and it's really, the growth needs to be personal and growing this stuff internally yourself and working on that. And then your business grows with you. And then you're kind of, wow, this happened with it, as opposed to you put this audacious goal out there for your business and you never hit it. And then you feel like a failure. And it's like, you could have got there if you just had done it. The exact same thing, just in a different steps, to have the right mindset.
Or you hit it and personally you're not ready for it and you won't keep it.
And you're still miserable.
That happened to me,
right? Those are the guys that hit 6-7 figure incomes and go and put a gun in their mouth because they're miserable because they didn't have it inside. It was all about the money and the business. And of course, money alone, doesn't buy happiness. It's the right mindset. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's obviously advantages to making better income than not, but it's like the happiness is from a different I mean, my wife and I talked about that, where we lived in a 5,000 square foot apartment when we were building this thing, and we were happy as we were growing, and then, got to different levels. And if anything ever happened where like the whole world just imploded, we could be happy again because of where we are internally. If because we could be at the point, look at some of these other countries, right, where everybody lives like that. It's like, because that's internal, right? So yeah, working on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And
somebody
really
asked what
working
your
on it,
structure
not
is.
like just thinking about working on it. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, it's a good idea, and then they don't. I was like, no, really, go buy a book. Or sign up on a YouTube.
I listen to Audible. I mean, I listen to so many books. So many books a year. It's like, and reading books and stuff. I mean, so much. And part of it is just like mentally. People talk about like, oh, you're reading books that have nothing to do with business. And I'm like, well, sometimes it's just, you need your brain to shut off from that too. It's like, go enjoy life. It's like, enjoy a work of fiction, enjoy a movie, enjoy a hike, enjoy going fishing, whatever you like. It's like, go do that. It's like, shut your brain off. It's like that. You'll be amazed at how much that helps you.
Absolutely. If I take vacation, when I take vacations, I come back, I just feel refreshed. I have new ideas. I mean, it takes a balance. I mean, really, the balance is the best.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Somebody asked what your structure is for your business. C Corp, S Corp.
Oh, LLC with S Corp election.
Yeah, which is what we are too. I think most of us. C Corp is usually designed for much larger. I mean, you're the way it's worded, this is running an operation of your size. In reality, from a company standpoint, these are very small companies. A handful of employees is not a large company in any means. I mean, we will always be small businesses. You could be making $10 million a year. You're a small business. I mean, you got to break $100 million a year to be considered a large business. So, it's just for other people listening to this, it's like, so I think most of us are doing LLCs with S Corps. I mean, that's just kind of the way, and that's a tax question anyway, but that's the way we're set up. That's the way you are. Talk to your CPA, but yeah. Just so everybody understands that's listening to that. And like I said, not a whole lot of questions here. Somebody else asked,
okay,
are you buying lots outright, mix and matching? What's your business method there?
Meaning, do we like take them down versus just get them under contract?
Do you buy them straight up? Do you double close them? Do you, how are you, or what percent, like, how are you handling most of, or
the vast majority, we take them down, we buy them and take ownership and then sell them. We do have a few deals, I would say maybe like 80-20%. The ones that we take down we try to do more of those because it's simple. Actually, for our structure and our systems, I mean, maybe other systems that may be flipped, but the way we are structured, that it is easier for us to take it down and buy it and sell it versus just flip a contract. And we can do
plus your average purchase price is not super high, right? I mean, you're not talking, you're not, I mean, you've got some, but you're not buying your average purchase price on $100,000 purchase. I mean, so that makes a difference too.
But that goes back to scaling though, so in the beginning, very low average purchase price. But if anybody, who's listening is interested in scaling, we want to kind of over time move that up. And we have done that as well. But yeah, and that can be adjusted for kind of wherever anybody's at, what you get in, what you put in is what you get out on some level. So, wherever you're at financially, put in, but we've increased that over time. And then we do, depending upon the particulars of a deal, we may just put it under contract and go for either a double close, management fee, something like that. Either with exceptionally high dollar, we've had multiple million to $15 million properties for sale, or if there's a question about it, we're not so sure it's going to sell very well. Maybe it's in wetlands or it's got some problems. Then we may put that under contract and just kind of play with it, see how it does.
Yeah,
but we try to gear towards taking them down and buying them and flipping them.
And if you own them, you do have more flexibility, but we don't tell people, I mean, if you don't have the money, don't do it, right? If you don't need it, but if you have the money and it makes sense and there's a substantial profit upside, all the pieces line up. I mean, we talk about that, and that's something we talked about early on, and that was kind of how you decide that. So a lot of it just depends on what you find in the property itself. I mean, that's the nice thing I love about this business, and I tell people all the time is don't get hung up in a business strategy, because you can change it every single property, right? I mean, you could have a property that has a $10,000 purchase price that is worth $50,000 all day long, and you go buy that, but you got another one that's $10,000 and it's like you said, there's wetlands or something, and all of a sudden you're not 100% sure, and that's like, even though it's the exact same price and you may have the money, it doesn't mean that you handle it the exact same way. And then so every single property is, huge aspect. I mean, that's a very nice thing about this business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kind of letters are you using? Somebody asked that. Blind offers or just standard initial neutral letters for the most part?
We have used both. We have used both neutral and blinds. We currently are using more blinds. than initial now. But I guess it depends. If we had a different model, might go the other way, or if we were going in different areas, or if we were to change the type of properties we go after. So I really adapt that for our current strategy. So right now we're using blinds, but I wouldn't recommend that everybody does that.
And it's an area, I mean, because I know you're familiar with I think one of the problems with blinds that we address a lot is people just send them having zero knowledge of, and just being like, I think it's worth, and I'm just going to, know your markets, and then you go do that. Because we talked about that.
We do more, well, because we used to do what was it? I forget what we even call them. The initial letters or
neutral,
neutral letters. We used to do that. And the benefit of that is you don't have to do any homework up front. You only have to do homework for, the responses that you get. So, but with the blinds, we do a substantial amount of homework up front, a lot actually. And because if you don't, then you're just going to kind of waste time and energy and money. So, and again, we've restructured ourselves to do that. But again, it's not for everybody. That would be for someone who's willing and confident in their ability to do the work up front and price those accurately.
And that's what we teach. I mean, you got to be familiar with it to do it. Because I mean, on properties I own, and I'm sure you're in the same boat, we get them. And some of them, it's just like, well, I mean, I've had blind offers that are like nowhere near the value. And then I've had ones that are offering me more than I'm asking for them. They're nowhere near on the other side. It's like, they're like, oh man, I got a property out there for $15,000. Somebody comes along and offers me 20. And it's like, they're not going to close. Just there's no way there it's possible. So it is what you said. I mean, that education up front, you need. If not, I mean, you're going to be canceling so many more contracts than you actually close on. It's like,
oh my God, one time. So we were used to, we would mess up. I mean, no one's perfect, right? So we previously messed up where we had offered usually too low and not get any deals in. But one particular area we offered too high. And in one area within like 2 weeks, we got 100 contracts in. It was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
and
you're like, oh, at least that's like a nice indication, you messed up. I mean, you're like, that can't be right.
We had to trash them all. And they were more angry than the people that we offer too low on. Sometimes they can be angry, but if you make an offer and they sign it, and then you have to tell people, sorry, I can't go through with it. That's even rougher when you make that mistake. But we did that one time, and it's kind of funny, but try not to do it.
I mean, and the nice thing there that I heard was 6 years in, big business, you're still human. We still make mistakes, and we still do that too. I mean, things happen, right? It's nothing's perfect in this. I mean, you just move on from that. So, and then I think our last question here, pretty simple. How many states and counties do you focus on at one time?
Currently, we are in 7 or 8 states actively right now.
I mean, the county part doesn't really matter as much because that's, but
that's going to be dependent upon the stage of everybody's business. We're about to open up probably 4 or 5 more. So we'll be pretty soon in 11 or 12.
You've got a team in place that's a little different. I mean, you though, just to put this in perspective, you really worked singly in like a single state. I mean, you did some deals in other ones, but as far as like actual marketing and like you focused on one state for 4 years?
Most of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Primarily for sure, like 90% in one state. Yeah.
For the first. So it really depends on where you are. I mean, now that you've got people in place and it can handle these different things and building the team, because we talk about that all the time. People are like so hung up on like getting elsewhere. And I'm like, you got to get new attorneys. You got to deal with whatever the tax ramifications are. You got to know if you have to register. Nothing wrong with all that stuff, but like get there first. Don't worry about doing that before you get to that point. So you
don't want to spread yourself out too thin. Well, like I said, it's incremental growth, so if you're not at the point where you're ready to take on that, it's a pretty hefty challenge to do that many states at a time and multiple counties within those states. So, take it step by step on that. That's a big jump.
Yeah, we ourselves 4 or 5 at a time. We kind of hop around in different part, but we've never really gone beyond that. It's just and the other thing is, so many people get hung up on like, I need to focus on like moving because every state has good, every state has bad areas, and you just got to work into the pocket, not necessarily be like, oh my God, this state's so much better. Right.
Yeah.
I've always said, like, with the exception of maybe like Rhode Island and Delaware, which are like this big. Yeah.
Right.
It's like every other state. It's like, where I live, North Carolina, it's like, I live on 8 hours to get to the other side. And in reality, North Carolina is not it's kind of middle of the road when it comes to state size, right? It's like, so, Florida is the same thing. It's like, Panhandle is like a whole different world. Then you go like up in North Jacksonville, then work down towards Miami, Gulf Coast. It's everything's so different. Texas could be a state. It could be a country. It's probably bigger than a lot of countries. California's probably bigger than a lot of countries. So people get so hung up on like, oh, I've got to move to do better. And it's like, no, focus on your mindset, focus on the areas, because there's still plenty to be had. Again, unless you're in like one of those tiny states, but they're pretty few and far between.
And that's another thing. That's a good point. Another thing if you're looking at doing multiple states, to be ready for it, because you got to be able to track your results well, because you could go one state, and it's not even state, because within, as you said, within any given state, and every state we've ever done, we've had areas that performed very well and areas that didn't perform that great. So you want to be, the more you expand, the more you got to make sure you're tracking, you're comparing your different areas, split testing. So it does increase the complexity moving in that direction. It's rewarding. It can be, but if you do it too early, it may not help your growth. It may set you back a little bit.
Key takeaway in this, because as we're wrapping up here, I want to say, and you could talk on this just for a second, because I think it's huge, is everything you said. I think a lot of people are focusing on, oh man, he's got 7 people, but in reality, when you started and we were working together, you did this stuff on you did on a smaller level. You were still doing it yourself. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you took those components and just made them bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the stuff that you're talking about is not dependent on the team building aspect. It's dependent on the scaling part, where you just kind of do it, but you do it incrementally, like you said, internal growth and working on it and things. It wasn't like you were like early on, we're just like throwing stuff at the wall. I hope it works. It's like you were following the process, following all of that. And then from there, it was like, okay, well, let's add this little, and then let's add this, and let's add this, and let's add this, and let's add. And now, yes, you've got a running business and you've got people in place and all of that. But in reality, people talk about like how difficult, all the business, it sounds so, it's not difficult. It's being disciplined. And you never lost that. You had the discipline at the beginning, and you just brought that out, further as time has elapsed.
100%. Yeah. Steady, sustainable growth. And again, this happened, like I didn't do this well. But these are the learning lessons, like in my previous businesses, I'd be like, oh, if you got to like, sprint and kill yourself to get here, then it only logic though makes sense. It's just not sustainable. So it's not going to work. But if you can make it work at here, and then you can make it work here, and then you can make it work here, and then you can make it work here, then logic tells you this is a sustainable model. And taking it step by step, piece by piece, I think is the best, in my experience, has worked wonders. And, we've grown, honestly, because of that process. As you mentioned, Jonathan, a lot of people who most either bounce out, don't get started, bounce out, or kind of plateau early. But we've continued.
And you still plateau. Even if you it's realizing you're going to hit those. That's true in anything, right? Anything. They talk about like weight loss. You're going to hit plateaus. They talk about learning an instrument. You're going to hit plateaus. Guess what? You're going to hit a plateau in a business. You have to understand that that's going to happen, and then you'll grow. That's normal, right? And so people, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this, have you on and talk about this, because obviously, you learned the business. I taught you that part as far as the real estate, but the business mindset you already had. And I liked it because we were very aligned in that. And that's something I I try to tell people up and down, and it's so nice, like having somebody else say that is, these internal growth, slow and steady, working these different aspects, getting it as you find something well, then expanding and then expanding and then expanding. And then you do all of that. And that's where you're standing now, just a few years later, with a good running, sustainable business in place, as opposed to, where a lot of people end up running, just kind of running away from stuff.
Yeah. And you mentioned plateauing. I mean, oh my gosh, also kind of look at it like ceilings. Like we would hit our heads against the same ceiling, like over and over. Like, well, how come we can't either get the team put together? Like we still can't seem to get the right person and the right fit, or we can't get the right system, but we would try and we'd hit the ceiling and then be like, okay, hold on, regroup. What did we learn? Okay, don't do this, do this, hit a ceiling again. But, it's just the consistency of, I just don't have a doubt really anymore of that it will work out. So I just am aware that we're going to hit these plateaus. We are going to hit these ceilings, and there's a way through them. And I'll just keep hitting my head against the ceiling as many times as it takes, but I know I'm going to break through.
Well, the other thing, that I tell people is sometimes you just got to be realistic with it, even with like plateaus. If you hit a plateau, you're still elevated. It wasn't like you've got a business that's doing X. It's still doing it. It's not like you've lost. You're doing that. Same thing with weight loss or something. You lose 30 pounds and then you don't lose anything for a month. You still lost 30 pounds. It wasn't like you gained it all back, right? It's like, or if you're learning an instrument and you learn how to play 10 songs and you can't play anymore after that for a little, well, you can still play those 10 songs. It's like, you still hit a goal. It's just that now it's kind of leveled out and it'll pick back up from there. So sometimes we just got to get focused on reality and be like, it's still producing, just not at the level it was, but it will produce again. It's like, I just got to keep going, and then it will start to go back up, because that's the way it always works.
Yeah. And hanging out at that plateau is healthy, because that plateau is now the foundation for the next growth phase.
Yeah, that's huge. All right. I see one question popped up on YouTube. I forgot that was on there, and then we'll call it a day after that. We've been on for a while, so we don't keep taking your time. We thank you for joining us, and super educational, and hopefully people are seeing like what can be done, not with a whole lot of, just taking the same efforts and just kind of putting them in a different spot, it's redirecting your efforts. But somebody asked, what are you trying to make per deal? They said either a minimum dollar amount, minimum percentage, doubling your money, tripling your money. Do you have a certain goal on a per deal basis?
I mean,
that's probably changed over time, right?
Exactly. That has changed over time. Yeah. And again, look to where you're at, but in the beginning, we were happy with a certain dollar amount. And now we even try not to do deals at that dollar amount, unless they've just literally fall in our lap. But so that dollar amount will grow and continues to do. But, as far as I would look at percentage more and look at how much you have to invest. And, for us, we aimed, sometimes we make much more than this and sometimes we make less, but we try to do have our investment be about a third on average of what we get back. And I know some models, and I think Jonathan, your model is actually greater than that, like a higher gap, but that's kind of what worked for us, because the way I like to have things is I like volume. And so that's how I've structured it from the past. And sometimes we do less, sometimes we do more, but that's kind of our aim. And it also depends upon our investment level. So, if back in the day when we were doing, lower dollar properties, we might aim for more than that. But now that we've moved our dollar amount up, basically the more, in my experience, in general, not always, but the more a property is worth, the higher percentage you got to kind of invest to get the deal done, usually.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about all the time. You talked about a third at $10,000. So you're spending $3,300 to get to 10. Okay. Spending 100,000 to get to 300,000, not too common, right? I mean, and that's the deal where you got to just look at it from the right mindset too. It's like, okay, I can spend 250 and double close it or whatever and sell for 300. I'm still walking away $50,000, which is still, 6 times greater than I did from the 3,300 to 10,000. It's like, it's still, as far as money. So that's a big, a lot of it is dependent on the property, and a lot of it's dependent on the economy too. I mean, I'm sure you're realizing that now to get especially bigger deals, you got to offer more. I mean, it's 2022, hot market, $100,000 pieces of property. We used to be able to get them for 30 grand. That's not so common anymore. Now it's like you're up over half to get, but that's still fine because you can sell it for market. So if I got to pay $50,000 or $60,000 to get 60 grand to get $140,000 payday, all day long. So, but to answer his question, one thing I will say is some people just have a bottom threshold. And I know I've heard that a lot. Some people are just basically like, $10,000 is my minimum now. $5,000 is my profit, as opposed to, as you said, as it goes up, the margin goes down, the percentage gets, you're not going to, but you'll get better dollar amounts in a lot of those cases, right? I mean, 250 on $300,000 is a much higher percentage than 3,300 on 10,000, but you make a lot more money. But some people have a basic bottom level. And for the person asking that, I mean, that's fine to set. You could be like, I don't want to do deals that are under, I got to make at least $5,000 profit, or I've got to make at least $10,000, whatever it is that you're setting up inside your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more deals that you do, the more you'll get that feel for yourself about where you want to be. One other thing though, on the other side, once it's acquired, we don't fight the market ever. If I think a property is worth 50,000, but the market says it's worth 30, I'm not going to fight that. I'm going to sell it at 30 and move on to the next deal. Like, I'm not going to hang on to this property for 6 months trying to make what I think it's worth. It's too much time wasted. So, if we buy property, we don't get to make our 3x markup and we maybe overbought, then let's just friggin' sell this thing and move on, do as best as we can, sell it at market. It is what it is. But
it works the other way too, because I've had properties that I bought for $8,000 and I thought it was worth 40 and ended up being worth 60 because the market went. So you get the other side of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like the thing is, and what I tell my team is like, just don't fight the market. Because sometimes we're like, oh, I really wish we could get this, or because sometimes it does happen the other way around. And then we're not fighting that either. We're not like, oh, well, then let's just not raise our, because we have taken down properties and re-raised them up because we realized as soon as we put it up, our phone exploded. We're like, whoa. I mean, like exploded, like 20 calls in one day. It's like, okay, wait a second. I think maybe we just, underprice this a little bit. So we'll take it down and put it back up. But just, we don't fight the market. Our market is what it is. And we're not emotionally invested in any properties. It's just, we move, we want to make people happy, give them good deals. And that's how you move land. You have to give good deals generally to move it quick. So
I think the key there is that I say, you said it in different words, but I say all the time is don't be greedy. You're still making money. It's like if you got it under contract for 20 grand and all you can do is sell it for 20, then sell it for 30. You make $10,000. Be happy. It's like, it's like it's not every deal, but just be happy. It's like move on to the next one. It's like, and that's where you talk about like consistency, right? Having them in the pipeline. It's like, okay, well, I sold down for 10. The next one's going to sell for 20. The next one's going to sell for 8. The next one's going to sell for 40. It's like, who cares? It's like, just keep them going.
Yeah. And it's a great learning lesson. If you have a property that doesn't make what you thought, then now, moving forward, you have some good insight as to what properties are worth in that area. So adjust your offer accordingly. It's that simple. As long as we're not attached to any one particular deal, it becomes easy to kind of see these trends and these kind of, just look at it like numbers. In fact, that's one thing that helped me out. This is one thing I do want to mention to your group. In addition to getting coaching, which I would highly recommend since Jonathan was mine. He's a great coach, and I'm not a paid sponsor, but
you were a paying sponsor. You paid.
I was originally.
Yeah, you were a paying sponsor, not a paid sponsor, right? It's the other way around. You paid the money.
Oh my gosh, did I just lose track of my thought? Let's see what we were.
You said the one thing that you would recommend in addition to coaching, but
oh
well. You're in the group. If you remember it, just type it in the comments.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, what in the world was it? What were we just talking about right now? I'm really going to give my best to remember this because I like I wanted to contribute this. What were we just talking about?
Not being emotionally attached and just being
not
content
being
with what, yeah. Be content. Don't be attached to the properties, and just whatever you get, and moving on.
I mean, that would be a big one for sure. Oh my gosh. I'll send it to you. You can send it to the group. It'll come back to me.
All right.
But luckily there's no one important key. That there's just many good keys. Put them all together, but stay consistent.
Yeah. But I mean, first, I mean, like, I just end here. I thank you for joining us and talking about this. But I think, I mean, I just end with this point, I guess, is it's been 6 years. You did get coaching. You got help to learn the business, and you did learn it, and then you ran with it. I mean, do you feel that anything you did is extraordinary, or can anybody develop this if they are disciplined and are going to do it with the right tools in place? I
just remembered the key point. Back to scaling, if you don't mind. We'll take like 2 seconds.
We can come back to this after.
One thing that I brought to the table because of my business background was selling products. So one of the companies I had, almost all of them except for the interior design, were product based. We sold Rolex watches for a while, and then we sold biker jewelry. In the biker jewelry company, we sold thousands of rings and bracelets and to people all over the world. And so I already had it in my mindset. It's just like moving a product. And many starter investors that I've seen, and Jonathan, you can correct me if you have a different one or agree, the investors, it's like, okay, I got this one deal. Let me massage this and get the most I can out of this deal and sell this one deal. Okay, there goes. Okay, let me get another deal. And it slows people up when it comes to scaling, whereas just looking at it as though it's just a widget or a product. And I think, and I love land, don't get me wrong, I think it's a very valuable widget and product, but it is a product just like anything else. And if we can just keep that unattached view of it, then we don't get hung up along that process. We can just keep that chain moving. So that's the one thing that I brought that I saw when I compared myself to other starter investors when I was beginning, that I just was like, why are these guys getting hung up? And they're only doing a handful of deals when they can be doing so many more if they just stop getting so into the details of these. It's like, it's worth X, the comps are Y, put it up on the market for Z and move on. And that's that was the one thing I wanted to mention. Yeah,
that goes back to a conversation I know we had early on about this, because we talked about this. I remember 6 years ago. And you were talking about like coming from that business and looking at it from product and all that. And I remember the conversation I had with you, I had it with a couple other people, is understanding our business. We are not in a real estate business. Real estate's our product. We're in a marketing business. We're marketing to get product. We're marketing to sell product. And that's all we're doing. And so you marketed to buy and sell watches. You marketed, maybe you created the jewelry, but whatever it was, you created jewelry and then marketed to sell it. Now you're marketing to get property and sell property. We are marketers. Everything we're based on is on marketing, right? I mean, we market with our letters. We market with we're not getting it from other reasons. It's because of marketing. Mm-hmm. And that's our product. And I know we talked about that early on, and you obviously really embraced that from your other background, because that's the way you always ran your business, which obviously allowed you to do more deals.
It did help with the scaling a lot. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 100%.
So back to the other question then before that, just real quick, and we're not, like I said, we'll finish up, was, do you feel like you are anything extra? Like, if somebody does the discipline, they learn this, in reality, can anybody put this together if they have the right mindset? I mean, is this like, do you feel like you came in and be like, man, I am a Superman when it comes to like doing these things, and that's why I created a 7-figure business in 6 years?
No, certainly not. I mean, everybody has their own skill set that they bring to the table for themselves. And I had some, but others have theirs, and you had yours. So, and everybody has theirs. Maybe the thing they bring to the table is tenacity, or maybe the thing they bring to the table is they're good with numbers, or maybe the thing they bring to the table is they're good with people. We all have our like little gifts that we have, but there's not any one particular thing that, like, what in my DNA, like that. I even hear that question very silly, but I respect it. I understand where you're coming from, but it's kind of like, that's ridiculous, because what is like, I have like a DNA code that makes.
Well, I think it's silly too. That's why I asked it, because I knew the answer. I know what you were going to say, but I tell people all the time, something like, well, you're special, or he's special. I'm like, no, we worked. That was the end. The bottom line was we worked. That was it. We put the time in to do this. I put the time in to build a business. You put the time in to build a business. You grew with it. We did the exact same things, and our skill sets are not the same, not in the least. We came from different things, but we used what we had and took the knowledge and grew from there. So for anybody that's sitting there being like, this is extraordinary, they are extraordinary results, because most people won't. It's not that they can't, they just won't. That's the difference, right? People like just are lazy. I'm sorry if this is hitting some people between the eyes as they're hearing or listening, but it's like, they just won't do the work. They won't take the steps. And it's like, but in reality, any of us can. If you're not, you're limiting yourself. It has nothing to do with the so many people like blame the circumstances. Oh, I was this and I was this and this happened. No, you overcome. Those are roadblocks. Those are hurdles. You overcome those things, but nothing is stopping us, any of us, from being able to do that next thing.
I mean, outside of our brain, what's happening out there in the physical world is typing on a keyboard and picking up a phone and mailing letters. I mean, if we were to somehow be able to take emotion completely out of it and just look at it as a series of steps, it's like all it is, really.
Yeah. Other than getting like very sick and being like on like not being able to actually physically, that's one thing, right? But like other than that, we all have I mean, I've heard people like, well, I lost somebody, and that's sad. It is, don't get me wrong, but it's also limited to a certain, my spouse died in 2010 and I can't do deals in 2020. I mean, it's still sad 12 years later, but you're letting it affect who you are, as opposed to the grieving time and things like that. And that's an extreme example, honestly. We're talking about death. I mean, a lot of people, it's just like, I'm not good with X, or I don't do this, or I have to go to work 40 hours, whatever. There's so many different things that people just throw out there. They're like, that's why I can't be like him. And it's like, no, you're using that as an excuse, when in reality, people like myself, people like you, we used it as our motivation, because we're like, we don't want to do that. We want to like get over that stuff. And that's what's going to get us there, as opposed to looking at it and being like, that's the reason I can't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you break it down into series of actions, we can all do it, because it does take a mindset, right? I mean, in possibly breaking it down and seeing that it's really just a series of actions, anybody can see that they can do it. And our mind is what is either going to keep us from or drive us to. So, yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Thank you for joining us. We went long, like an hour and a half, but thank you for being here with us and for doing this. And guys, if you're watching this and you have questions, you can just comment in the post. He's in our group. He'll see them. So if you have something specifically for him, just type it, type it in the comments as you're watching this later. Some people aren't watching live. So if you have something that pops up and you want to know, go ahead. But Roman, thanks for joining us. And I mean, for me personally, it's been great. Yeah. I love being in touch, staying in touch with you. I thank you still for kind of pushing me 6 years ago to be like, teach this to me when I wasn't even looking at doing that. And like, it's obviously spawned into a whole different, land method thing and all of that. So that's been great, but it's been awesome just to see what you've done. So.
Yeah, man. Great to see you too, Jonathan. I'm glad we still stay in touch. I love to hear how you're doing, and let's continue to do that. How's the whiskey decanter still working?
It's sitting over there. I just it's a little low. I guess I should add something to it. So actually, for those that just real quick story on that, that was a gift from him to me. He knew I liked whiskey, and after first year, maybe I don't even remember. I remember like 1 year in or something, and you had done something, and you gave me that as a gift, whiskey decanter and a couple glasses with our name on them. So pretty cool. Yeah, we use it a lot. So it's and the watch. I got the watch. I'm not wearing that one today, but I still have that too. So
okay, good.
But yeah, that's good stuff. And a funny, real quick, I keep saying we're done, but funny story that I like to tell, I've talked to you about, I like to tell other people, is when Roman approached me initially about teaching him, he offered to like just pay me, or he offered to pay me like an X amount per deal. And I was like, oh God, this guy's not going to do anything. So I'm like, I'll just take the money. It was a bad decision, very, very bad decision based on how much he offered to pay me per year, not per year, per deal for the first year. I was like, oh God, no. I'm like, I won't make anything. It's like, not that I would have ever expected you to pay me what the number you offered and the amount of deals you ended up doing. I wouldn't have taken that from you, but it was just like hilarious, like thinking back on it after the fact. But it goes back to the whole thing. Scaling, team build. I mean, right from the very beginning, you jumped in, you were consistent, you were doing it your own, but you still did a bunch of deals. You're able to do that. And now here we are, 6 years later, 7 employees and, 7-figure business and multiple states and all of that. So it just shows, what's possible from scaling by yourself at that point to scaling with a team, growing and all of that as you're going along.
Yeah, man. Awesome. That's a funny story. I did not know that. I did not even think about that, but
yeah. Good. So it's been a while since we talked about it, but it is a funny story. So anyway, so thanks again for joining us. And for the rest of you guys, thank you for listening, tuning in, listening on podcasts, whatever way you're listening. If you have any questions, obviously feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to discuss anything with you as far as your land investing businesses. You can reach out to us at support@thelandmethod.com, or feel free to reach out to us at 980-357-4545. We can have a consultation with you or anything like that if you want to get going. So again, talk to you guys next week. Thanks for joining us, Roman. Thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.